Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Elusive Dick. I'm Marjorie.
And I'm Barbara.
And today we're going to talk about ourselves, which is a topic we've been getting asked about by numerous people on the websites and podcasts. Has been asking questions. They want to know a little bit more about each of us.
Yes.
Which is kind of funny. And most people said, why didn't you start out telling us about yourself? And I said, to be really honest with you, I didn't think anybody would care. I just thought we kind of did it for the stories, not for...
Right.
But if you want to know about us, today's the day you're going to get the lowdown, and feel free to ask as many questions as you can.
Yes.
The first one up is going to be Barbara.
Yes. Here I am. So, my gosh, I've had a lot of years on this earth. So I guess we start at the beginning. And when we were talking about, how we were going to frame this, I said, well, since this is like a relationships, dating / sex podcast, we can talk about how our life experience has influenced our attitudes towards relationships and sex and all that. So I will start out with, I was raised in a rural part of New Jersey in a very traditional family, very traditional values. My mother is very Catholic. I went to Catholic school, K through 12. Not all girls, thankfully, but still. We had the nuns, the polyester uniforms, mass every Friday with school, and then every Sunday with the family. Oh, confession. So that is how, so in regards to relationships and sex, in the 5th grade, I believe it was, the boys went to PE, the girls went to a classroom and were shown some video on your period.
Right.
That was the end of sex ed. That's it.
That was the same for me.
Okay. Mom and dad, probably like most people in our generation, there was no conversation. Birds, bees, not even about a period. Like, oh, thanks. Okay. At least I had an older sister and a best friend with older sisters. So I kind of, knew what was going on. And we had the fear of God slapped into us from the nuns. Sex is for when you are married. Sex is for procreation. That's it. Otherwise, you're going to hell. Okay, this is what I was taught. So I had fear around sex. I had this, just stay away. Okay. So then we go on to high school, still Catholic high school, blah, blah, blah. But, getting older. I never had any serious boyfriends. I mean, I was definitely interested in boys, as were all my friends. We would pass notes and, oh, is so-and-so going to ask me to the prom and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. Well, first of all, I was towering over every boy until maybe senior year when they finally had their growth spurt. But I was literally 5'10" when I was 16. So that was awkward. And again, there was no internet, no, how do we explore, what, all the, how do you give a blowjob? Now you could just go Google this. Then, I mean, it's from somebody's sister said, who knew? There was no education going on. We knew nothing. So I never really had a couple boyfriends, and a few times I remember the one who was really cute. He was 6'5" on the basketball team. His name was Greg. We can say that because we were in his basement and making out. I think I was a freshman or a sophomore in high school, and this is the first one of the first encounters I even had.
Spin the bottle.
Yeah, that was with friends though, like not anyone I was interested in, so that was not that exciting. But this little encounter, and then we're in his basement, starting to kiss, and I could feel something under his jeans, and I totally freaked out. I didn't know what to do with this. I was 15. I don't know. I think I jumped up, was yeah, I gotta go. Which I'm kicking myself now because he was hot. Again, I had no idea. Anyway, then college, so I had not had sex, still a virgin. and still kind of very fearful. And and also, God forbid, someone gets pregnant. Again, you're having that baby. I'm not doing that. In the teenage years. So college, developing more of my own thoughts around sex and relationships. Definitely, I don't know about you, but my college years, it was a total hookup culture. Nobody was looking for boyfriends and all that. It was just like a free-for-all sort of. So I was definitely, hooking up here and there, but still no sex because of the fear of God. Still a little less fear, but I mean, it's there.
Right.
It was drummed into my head. Then, as the college years are going, I'm like, I'm not graduating college a virgin. Then this is my thing. I'm like, this is bullshit. I don't need a boyfriend, whatever, but I'm not graduating college a virgin. So I think I was a junior. Like, it was later on in college. One night, my memory is horrible. But anyway, I ended up sleeping with one of my best guy friends. I don't think we had a conversation about it. I didn't know what happened. I mean, we partied hard in college. I mean, sorry, Mom. We were drunk all the time. So I don't even know how it happened. And quite frankly, I barely remember it. But whatever, I was so happy I wasn't a virgin anymore. So then that was that. But still, not a lot of experience about, and even like exploring our own bodies, or just not a lot of conversation around any of this still. So I meet my husband right at the end of college. We were introduced by our mutual friend. So we were like 22, so pretty young, and we fell in love. He was amazing. Chris is his name. It was finally like I met a guy who was mature enough, but still really silly and fun and smart. And we just connected. And I said, like, he was my soulmate. Like, I just knew. And meanwhile, like, rewind like a year or two, my college roommate and I, we were roommates for 4 years. By senior year, because she also didn't have boyfriends, we're like, okay, if we're still this again is like a generational thing when you hear this. We're like, if we're still single by the time we're 30, because God, that seems so old. We're like, we're joining the Peace Corps. Okay, that was our grand plan. Well, then meanwhile, senior year, she got a boyfriend, and they're still married to this day. And then right after graduation, I met Chris. So we did not join the Peace Corps. So by that time, obviously, then I'm like, wasn't really thinking about the whole sex and everything, because I'm like, I found my person. Like, we're going to get married, and there's no more of this fear of God.
Right.
And all this. So great. And I don't even really remember. Our sex was good. I mean, back then I would have been like, yeah, our sex was amazing. But now, having all this other experience, it probably was okay. But what made it fantastic was the connection, the emotional, right. the deep bond and connection. So, and then I do wonder if he was still here, like, how would our sex life had evolved? But we never got that chance, because he was diagnosed with a brain tumor 3 months before we got married. At age, he wasn't even 25 yet. He was still 24. So we got married, and just had that, that diagnosis was just hanging over our heads for 12 years until he passed at age 37. And not to mention, we're both starting out in our careers. He was so passionate and gung-ho and so ambitious, which was also something that was very attractive about him to me. Came from a very working class family, and was just like in Massachusetts, and just always dreamed of going to work on Wall Street and just like killing it. And he was doing that. So I really admired that in him, and even while he's sick, you know. So with the brain tumor, so the doctor, the surgeon, when he, researched everyone, because he's like, if someone's cutting my head open, it's going to be the best of the best. I'm like, yeah, good point. So luckily it was a slower growing type of brain tumor, and the doctor said, go get married, have your wedding, go on your honeymoon, and then when you come back, we'll do the surgery. So that was like, a couple months from when he said that. So that's what we did. So, here we are, like young newlyweds and, woohoo, on our honeymoon in Aruba. Like, I look back on this now and think back on it like, this is so sad. And this is what we had, like, hanging over our head. Not that we talked about it every day. Like, we really didn't. But it was always there.
Sure.
Obviously, Anyway, so he had the surgery, and luckily they did not recommend treatment, follow-up treatment right after that. It was like a watch and wait. So he went back to work pretty quick, and we were kind of getting on with our lives, and it was fine. We traveled. I mean, I was in no rush to have kids, and he was working. He worked like a dog. I mean, the early on and the, investment banking, they literally kill you. I mean, he was, I don't even know, 70 hours a week. I don't, which like thinking back now, like I get it because he was so motivated. But with that diagnosis, like, I mean, we did go on vacation, but I'm like, God, you are working so much. I don't know.
Do you feel like that distracted him?
Oh, good question, Ani. Probably. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we didn't talk about it a ton, the whole, like what that means for our future. I mean, obviously we knew because we would ask the doctors and like, well, there is no cure for brain cancer unless you lop off your head, which obviously that's not a good solution. So we always knew, it was just always going to be there in some way, shape, or form. And you're just kind of waiting and trying to live your life as normal as possible until something happens. So that's kind of what we were doing. But thankfully, he did, carve out the time for some of these great trips. And we had that time together. But going back to, okay, finally, like married life and, no more shame, guilt, or whatever with sex. Well, trying, to foster a career and this diagnosis hanging over your head, there was not a lot of time to be like, ooh, let's pump up our sex life. And then eventually it got to, oh, we want to have a family. I mean, he wanted two more. I was like, okay, fine. But in that time, it was 1995. He had the surgery in 2000. And also when we got married in 2000, the tumor had started coming back. And it was recommended he undergo chemotherapy. So that in and of itself was a whole nother hurdle. And it was not fun for anyone who's gone through chemo. But he also wanted to start a family, and which is, I mean, I was right there with him. Like, we're not going to stop living our lives. I mean, we know the outcome is probably not going to be good. But you got to live your life. So, but then obviously with chemo, that presents a problem, to have children. So I underwent IVF. I did 3 artificial inseminations that were not successful because this is my life. Just kick me while I'm down. My husband has brain cancer. I know you can't do it the easy way. Just, shoot up the little sperm and you get pregnant. So, and the other thing I loved was going to the fertility clinics. So by this time I was 34 or 33 when we started trying. I was already called like a geriatric like candidate or whatever to getting pregnant. I'm like 33, geriatric. I was so offended. Anyway, whatever. So then we had to go the IVF route, and lo and behold, the first time I was pregnant. Yippee! And then I went for a 6-week follow-up and no heartbeat. I was no longer pregnant. So had a D&C, and oh yeah, and I remember we were renovating like half of our apartment at the time, and we moved to a temporary apartment, which was so depressing. It faced like this brick wall. It had no light. And it was just not like that great. It was only for a few months, but this when, the, miscarriage or, I was in like a horrible place. It was so bad. Anyway, so then we did a frozen embryo transfer. And as I joked to my son, you came out of the freezer, my friend. So thankfully that took. And at age 35, I had a baby.
Do you still have stuff frozen?
Oh, no, that was a whole nother thing. So I had other embryos frozen, and, you pay an annual storage fee and blah, blah, blah. So every year I would get the, do you want to keep renewing your storage? And I did for about 5 years after Chris died. When I turned 40, I maybe it was, like my clock ticking. For a nanosecond was like, should I like try one more and like have one more on my own? Thank God.
A moment of insanity.
It was a moment of insanity, but I was like, that's really like the whole, medical advancements, the fact that could even be an option was kind of cool, and that it was still like a part of Chris. And I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? Like throw them out? So after that, I was like, yeah, you can get rid of them or donate them to science or whatever.
Right.
So, but yeah, again, all these just like, well, you're 35, 40. These are the things you have to think about. Like, just not fun. All right. So anyway, coming back to. So married sex was decent. It was clouded by cancer, by career, and then young, trying to raise, a young child. But anyway, sadly, Chris passed when he was 37, and Andrew, our son, was 2.5. And there I was. And even though I knew it was going to happen, I was paralyzed by grief. So... and again, even now talking about it, I just, maybe it informs a lot of how I am today, of just, you do not control, you barely control anything.
That's right.
You have to let go and live in the moment, because God only knows what tomorrow might bring.
Yeah, wake up in the morning with gratitude.
Exactly. So having this whole experience has completely informed, my perspective on relationships and life in general, going forward. But after Chris passed, just, again, paralyzed by grief. And I was never one for, I'd get a headache and people would be like, take an aspirin. I'm like, I don't need medicine. Like, I was never like into popping any pills. I'm like, it'll get better. It's fine. Whatever. Drink water, go to sleep. I literally went crying to my doctor. Well, this was closer to the end, when Chris got really sick again and the tumor recurred. And we would do an annual beach trip to North Carolina with our group of friends. And I was one of the last of my friend group to have kids. So they all had, some older toddlers and whatnot. And we went, for a lot of years before we had Andrew, we like opted out. we're like, yeah, you guys go with the kids. Like, we're going to France. We're going to Italy. Like, I'm not really interested in, like, I love you all, but I don't want to sit on the beach with your children. I'm sure we'll get there and we'll join you. So this was the year that we were joining them. And it was August. We, in Topsail Island, North Carolina, the middle of nowhere. And, Chris was still, even though, the tumor was progressing, he was still working. And I was like, oh, this will be great. We'll have some time on the beach. And finally we get, with kids at the beach, it's like all this schlepping, all this crap. And finally, everyone's like lubed up with the sunscreen. And Chris never read a book because he didn't have time. He's always on his little BlackBerry, constantly. So he was really going to, just tune out of work. He brings like this gigantic book. I'm like, he's never going to read this. But anyway, and he was very fair skinned. And he also, the whole lubing up. Oh, and then he had the hats on because he had had radiation for 6 weeks. We moved to Boston when Andrew was 6 months old. Like, I don't, the whole story is just nuts. That's something else. Anyway, because he had to be careful in the sun. So we set the man up on his beach chair under an umbrella, totally sunscreened up. He's got this big, I don't even know what the book was, book in his lap, about to start his nice beach vacation with the families and friends, and starts having a grand mal seizure on the beach. Literally as soon as he sat down. I'm like, day one of a 7-day freaking beach vacation? You and I joke about this. We must have been serial killers in our previous lives. Honest to God. Like, talk about you can't make this shit up with dating. Like, you can't make this shit up about life. Mm-hmm. So, and again, we're not near any major medical center. And it's August. Everyone's on vacation. So the ambulance comes. My friend's amazing. I mean, rocks. I wouldn't have gotten through any of this without them and my family. But my friends were like, they took Andrew, took all the other kids, like, go for a walk down the beach as my poor husband is seizing in the sand. And, takes a little while for the ambulance to come. And they put him in the back and I'm riding in the front. And usually when you see, a lot of times you see an ambulance and it's like in its lane, it's driving with the sound on and stuff, but, it's in its lane. Well, we are in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, and there happened to be some traffic. I don't really know. And with the sirens blaring, and I'm in the front and I hear them in the back. They're like, shoot him, more out of van, more out of van, more out of van. Like, he just kept, like, it was bad. And he had had a couple of grand mal seizures before, but I had not witnessed them. It's just not fun. And I felt, it's still surreal. Anyway, there was some traffic. All of a sudden, this ambulance starts going up on the median and, like, speeding down. Like, it was really bad. So we got to the hospital and, they sedate or whatever they do to make the seizure stop. And he couldn't really talk. And we had to get him back to New York. So I don't remember the timing exactly. It was probably like the next day. We airlifted him out. So I'm on he's literally, he's like on a stretcher, like, bound down sort of, because you're going to be on a plane, like this little plane. So you don't, slide around. But I'm like, what is going on? And I'm sitting there. And literally as we're taking off, of course, again, like, really, universe? Like, it's like this a thunder and lightning storm. I'm like, come on. I'm like scared shitless for him. And I'm looking out and there's like, flashes of lightning. I'm like, I am in a fucking movie. Like, this is my life? Really? Okay, great. And we got there. And of course, every good surgeon is on vacation in New York. August. Don't get sick in August. Anyway, he had another surgery, and that was kind of the beginning of the end. He passed in October, and that was August. But yes, even though I knew it was coming, paralyzed by grief, and again, cried to my doctor. I couldn't sleep when he was home. And he got out of rehab after the surgery. And I remember going to his neurosurgeon, Dr. Patrick Kelly, he's retired now. The nicest, I mean, you think surgeon, you think, oh, like they're great at what they do, but they're total assholes. He was not. He had the best bedside manner, the nicest man. I remember, and I was also different then. I was still, I didn't really speak my mind a lot. I was just more quiet. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to walk into this guy's office and be like, what should I do? And I was like, Dr. Kelly, Chris is in rehab. I put this in air quotes. I mean, he's not going to get better. I said, what do I do now? He's like, get him home. Set him up comfortably at home, get him home. I was like, okay, great. So for several weeks, he was home and dying. And that's when I could not sleep. And we were still sharing a bed. And I was just like all night like this. Hard, and as you know, you can't function if you don't sleep. I was a wreck. So anyway, that's when I went crying to my doctor. I'm like, you have to do something to help me. So that was the beginning of my medication. Thank you, Klonopin, for whoever invented it, because I was able to sleep through a night and function the next day. And then antidepressants, because clearly this was depressing. And I could not function. So he passed, and I still feel it. Just the disbelief, even though it's coming. Mm-hmm. It's wild to me. But when you have a 2.5-year-old, you have to get up, you have to feed them, have play dates, do all those things. So thanks to Andrew, I got out of bed every day and did those things. But it really was robotic and going through the motions. And yeah. So after it was several months after Krista, I mean, literally I felt like nothing. I felt numb, like a robot, like a shell of a person. And then I decided to visit, actually my friend that I slept with in college to lose my virginity. We were still friends and he was living in LA. I'm like, you know what? I think I need a little break. And my in-laws were lovely. Like they would watch Andrew all the time. So I went to LA to see my friend and, just go to the beach and hang out and have some good meals and blah, blah, blah. I put myself up in this nice hotel. And I mean, again, I was devastated and just not wanting to interact with any people whatsoever, except people that were very close to me. So I'm in the Shangri-La in Santa Monica. and also I'm not an alcoholic, but I found solace in alcohol daily. I do have wine here now telling the story because I don't know, it helps. It just is like a little take the edge off. So anyway, after my friend and I had dinner or whatever, and he left, I'm like, okay, maybe I need one more cocktail before I head up to bed. So I was just sitting at the bar, and I can't even imagine what I look like. I must have been such a sad sack. And there was I remember there was a cocktail napkin. I start doodling on it. I'm still I don't feel anything. I feel nothing. It's completely medicated, and then I'm sitting there drinking whatever I'm drinking. And then I see out of the corner of my eye this guy start to come up. And I'm just like, oh, for the love of God, do not come over here. Do not talk to me. No. He comes over, he starts talking to me, and I'm just like, I literally can't right now. And I was being such a bitch. I'm like, I don't even know what I was saying, barely anything. Then all of a sudden, this switch flicked in my brain. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I have all the power right now. I don't know why all of a sudden this is what happened, but I never had an experience like this in my life. If you think about the whole, up until then, my relationship with sex, I was like, huh. So for the 5 seconds this was going through my head, I'm like, I could probably talk to this guy and we could probably go up to my cool ass room. And I could probably have sex with this guy. I mean, he was good looking. I nicknamed him the Turk. He was Turkish. So anyway, I'm like, in that instant, I was like, okay, game on. Let's go. So anyway, so then I start talking and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we went up and had sex. Was it the best sex? No. Did I feel free and unencumbered and like I didn't give a shit? Yes. It's like I found my power. And even though I had still like no emotions about it, the fact that I was physically semi-interested in something after the paralysis for so long, it was kind of encouraging because I didn't know if I would ever feel that way again. You know? So that was the Turk. Now, however, okay, then that opened a whole Pandora's box. So when I tell you, before I got married, I slept with probably 2 people. In the next 2 years or so after that, after the Turk, I slept with like 24 people.
Wow.
Yep. So let's see. Some of them I dated. Some were one night stands. It was like all over the place. It was like half older, half younger. I mean, it was like, I don't even know what happened. And I remember I was in therapy at the time to help, process and blah, blah, blah. And I was like embarrassed to tell my therapist. And I started to like allude to it. And she was like, oh yeah, that's normal after grief. I was like, oh, okay. Even if it's not, I don't really care because this is what's happening. And I don't really know why. But it opened this whole door of sexual exploration and discovery for me that I was never
You didn't
really
hear the
presented
nuns in
before.
the back of your head at all?
Oh God, no, the nuns were long gone. And especially after, life dishes you, what I, went through. I was like, fuck that. I'm like, life is short. I'm going to have fun. And who cares? I really did not care anymore. So, and then on a parallel path, all of my girlfriends, married, young children, we're like 40. So for our 40th birthdays, I got everyone vibrators because we all came from the same background, right? No, I don't think we ever heard the word masturbate like until I don't know when. I don't even remember. Like it wasn't a thing. It was not part of the lexicon. So I said, ladies, here you go. And thank God for, the show Sex and the City. That opened up a lot to talk about. And they're all like, how have we not had what? Like, this is amazing. So then I became like the number one friend. So that was good. But let's see. Yes. And then after that phase of, I don't know, dating and sleeping with a lot of people, then I met the narcissist that I was in the 7-year relationship with because I was still feeling, grieving, I was so vulnerable, emotionally fragile, and I just craved stability. Because that's also like what I knew, with Chris, you're in a monogamous relationship, stable. I was also a single mother, which is, no walk in the park. And I just wanted to kind of feel taken care of. And, with the narcissists, how they come in, like the love bombing and all this, he was like all in. And well, also I met him online. Yeah, we slept together on the first date because, that was like my MO now. I'm like, well... But anyway, we were together for 7 years and we don't need to go down that road, but I learned a lot, gained a lot of perspective from being in that relationship. And then soon after, about 6 months after we broke up, I was in with the doctor for about 4 years, the long distance. And he was, or is, such a great person. I've talked about him before on here, I think.
That was around the time we met.
Authentic. That's around the time we met. Yeah, because we were both with doctors. It's a theme. A lot of doctors. but he's the one who had his own demons and had not processed and worked through all of his stuff. And after a while, I was, I couldn't. I'm just like, he can't get to where I want to be, which was so sad because he's a wonderful human. But it would also make me very frustrated, almost to the point of angry, because I put so much work in over the years to myself with everything with Chris, and then dealing with the trauma of the loss and navigating through that. And it's hard work. Like therapy, oh my God. Like I would hate going because I knew how hard it would be. And half the time I'd leave, I need like big sunglasses because I would like be crying so much. And managing like medication to make you feel like it's work. It's hard. Like therapy is hard if you're like really doing it with intention.
And if I may,
yes,
coming
honey,
from
please.
like, because I came from a similar background growing up, kind of in like a religious sort of sector. And then sorry, I forget where I was going with this. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Well, I'll come back to it. I did have a question that was
Yes,
important.
please.
About grief and kind of being in that mentality, because I feel like there could be a lot of people listening that are in a similar situation and they're a little bit older. Is there something that you would say to yourself then when you were going through that really pit of grief that you've learned over the years that you might say to that person now?
I love this. I love the question, and I'm going to answer it with a preface of, it's very strange. I'm sort of obsessed with grief and the grief process because I have a good friend who I met who is a social worker, and she's basically like a grief advocate. And we met, it was very serendipitous. I would do a Miami's girls trip every year, and we'd go to the same hotel, this little boutique hotel with a rooftop pool. Amazing, amazing. Drink mojitos all day long. Like that's what we did every year for our little break. And I was in the pool and I come out and my other girlfriends are like, oh my God, Barb, come here. You have to meet Lisa. You have to meet Lisa. I was like, why? What's going on? She and I literally had the same experience, maybe a few years apart. She had met the love of her life, her husband, Eric. He had a brain tumor. She also had an only child. Anyway, all the stuff, it was wild. And of course we bonded and we're still in touch. And she hosts a podcast called Grief is a Sneaky Bitch. So if anyone is...
Get her on this podcast.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah. Yes. To check out her podcast. She's amazing and a trained social worker, and now like feels like this is her life's work, is to be a grief advocate. So I've listened to a lot of podcasts. Also Anderson Cooper's All There Is grief podcast. Obsessed. I don't know, maybe there's something happening here with me that I'm becoming some grief advocate. But it's sort of like, it's a taboo subject, kind of like sex, people not talking about sex all the time, or menopause. There's grief. And again, it's like when we were growing up, what was, how, if you lost a grandparent or something or had some sort of loss, how was that modeled by the adults in your life of how you deal with that? And in my family, and from listening to these podcasts, it seems very prevalent that nobody really talked about it. You don't talk about it. You put on the black outfit, you go to the wake, you go to the funeral, you go to a repast, and you say nice things about the person who's gone, and then that's it. It's all done.
But also, don't forget, there's another component, which is where we come in common also, is that grief is for older people. It's an old person that has passed away.
Right.
So we were in a club of very few people. Being a widow at our ages, which was in my mid-40s.
Yep, you were mid-40s.
Was an unusual. You stuck out in a crowd.
Oh yeah, I was an island.
Right, you were an island in comparison to your friends.
You felt really lonely. Yep. And I utilized resources that were available for anyone listening who might be going through this. there was an organization, I don't know if it's still around, and I don't know if it's, nationwide, but I'm sure there are similar, but it was called A Caring Hand, and it was for families. So the children would have support and the adults would have support. And just to talk about your experiences. And I did meet some other, they tended skewed a bit older, but there were a couple of people that were my age that had lost spouses. And then also at the end of Chris's life with hospice and the visiting nurse service, a great resource they provided after Chris passed was a social worker for Andrew. Mm-hmm. She and I are still friends, Deborah. We see each other periodically. And this is 18 years now we're going on. She would come every week to see Andrew and play with him and stuff, so I could have a little break and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, she also put me in contact with a couple of people that were my age to talk about loss. Mm-hmm. And people would always tell me at the time, yes, it's very dark now. It will get better. Okay, I hated when people told me that, mm-hmm. but it is true. I am here to say it does get better. It took me 7 years. I remember being in therapy and telling my therapist, I said, I feel like I am on this journey walking through, it's like the tundra. You're in Antarctica or something, and it's just a wild snowstorm. And you're just walking, and there's no horizon. It's all gray. And I'm like, that's what I feel like.
It's walking uncertainty.
Walking uncertainty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or another analogy, you're on a tightrope and you're in the middle and you don't know whether to keep going forward or to turn back. You just don't know where to go. Mm-hmm. You have no idea what you're doing. It was awful. It's
My experience is that there's no going back once you reach that point.
No, I would not recommend going back. Yeah. Keep going forward, even though it's, you can't see anything in front of you. Yes. And it happens so slowly mm-hmm. that you finally get some semblance of yourself back. Did that answer your question?
It does. Well, it kind of, why you started this whole podcast, first episode, we were talking about following the joy. And yes. I think that is sort of the moral of the story. This is where my point was from before. Okay,
now
came all the way back.
All right.
They say God's strongest soldiers, right?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Given the worst. But for me, because I feel like that a lot too, we're been bombarded with mm-hmm. all this crazy stuff that's happened at a particular age. Right. And you're well, then that means I guess I'm the example for other people to follow.
That's a good way to look. That's a good perspective.
What a weight, but
well, right. Well, maybe you also were a serial killer in your prior life.
Maybe. But the fact that you can articulate your grief so well, I think is just so important for people to hear, and that there's hope and that there's joy that you can reach after that.
There is hope and there is joy, and that grief, it should be talked about. Because everyone grieves at some point in their life, mm-hmm. To different degrees, but it's a common thread among all humanity. As is sex, and much more fun to talk about. But not to get off topic here with doom and gloom, but it is interesting how all of these experiences shape, for me, how where I am today. I didn't mention that growing up, I was the shyest of shy children. We'd have family that would come over. We didn't, aunts, uncles, cousins that we didn't see all the time. And, it would take a while. I'd finally warm up and everything. And then when they were leaving, they'd be saying goodbye. I'd be hiding behind my mother's leg. I was deathly shy. And now I'm who is that person? That person is long gone.
Long gone.
And I would really keep a lot of my thoughts to myself. I would always have something to say kind of in my head, but I would never really put it out there until much later in life. Well, all right. So then the doctor, who sadly that was not for the long term. And then I was intentionally single for 3 years. As say, dated myself. And now I'm thinking about it, that is, I mean, outside of, since being married, that was the longest I'd ever been single. Anyway, it was a great decision. Very happy I did that. And it was really pouring the energy into nurturing the relationship with myself. And like, because, we're constantly evolving, and, kind of who am I now, and what am I thinking, and what do I really want? Like even just in our prior episode now, I'm kind of just questioning everything. I'm like, do I even want like just one person right now? I honestly don't know the answer. So
That's good because we'll have more material.
well, right. And also like the one, I mean, I feel like that is such a ask. I mean, that's a big lift. Just from her experience, I mean, that is a tall ass order.
It is.
And I like to keep realistic expectations. I've also learned that. I had some more notes. So, but even with the doctor, where I was mentally with relationships, I feel like I was still looking for that, looking to a partner for my own happiness and contentment a little bit. Like each one, it got less and less, but I was still kind of in that mode. So that's why the 3 years of being single and really working on the relationship with myself, I came to that full acceptance of I don't need anyone else to make me happy. It comes from here. And like you said a while back, like the designing your own life. I'm not waiting for anyone. And the perfect example, since Chris passed 18 years ago, since then I've been renting an apartment in New York City. Half the time thinking, well, I'll probably meet someone and we'll buy an apartment together or something, still putting that out there to be on someone else for me to kind of fulfill that. And then after this 3 years of introspection and learning to really love myself, I was like, I'm going to buy an apartment. I don't need anyone else to do this. Why do I need to wait for somebody? Not to mention all the closet space is mine. So it was and you've said that to me about the apartment. And I first started looking and I'm like, okay, well, I just want something turnkey, let's find something nice, already renovated. And the first apartment I saw walk in, original from 1963. I like the ceilings falling down in the kitchen. And I'm like, yeah, no, but the location and the balcony, once I went out there, I was like, okay. And I don't, sadly, I don't like hear Chris a lot, like in my ear, or I don't dream about him really, which also makes me sad. And I wish I could conjure that up. But I'm telling you, when I was in this wreck of an apartment, all of a sudden I hear Chris. He's like, you got to suck it up, girl, renovate this thing because it'll be a great investment and like you'll be happy here. Yeah. And then I also found him, it's kind of nasty, but walking around in the second bedroom, there was this like a wishbone on the floor. I don't know where it came from, but I was like, oh, okay, I think that's also a sign. I'm all about the weird signs. I don't know. Anyway, I still have the wishbone, which is also gross.
Jeez.
But anyway, yeah, that whole thing, renovated that apartment. What a pain in the ass, but it's fabulous. And I feel like Chris was there, like, you have to do this. And now that it's done, I'm like, yeah, man, it's mine. I've done it. So anyway, it feels good. Yeah, so who knows? And now being this age, I saw this, I think it was on the Drew Barrymore show, Mariska Hargitay. I don't know how you say her name. Anyway, she was doing an interview with her, and I think she's 60, Mariska. And she called it her badass era. I totally get it. Just coming into your own, especially growing up as the shy child and keeping things to myself. I don't. I just say what I want. My whole why not mantra, and just go for it. Who cares? Just do it. Life is short. It really, you get a lot of perspective. And not to mention being completely, unencumbered by any more religious, societal, cultural, any expectations with regard to anything. The whole dating younger, just do you. Just do what makes you happy. And then when that changes, then pivot and do something else. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at. So, as we've said, some people might judge, blah, 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 blah. You know what? Until you walk in somebody else's shoes, don't do it. You have no idea where someone's been and what they've gone through. Mm-hmm. So,
Yay.
So that's my story.
Listen, I think it's invaluable. I mean, I learned stuff about you that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Well, we didn't talk all.
Yeah, we've
about
never done like a deep dive.
Some of the details about, especially about the cancer portion of our programs.
Yeah, I know. We have not. Well, we're too busy talking about kids and
trying to keep them on track.
Try to keep them. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother. That could be like several episodes, but. Yeah, no. I mean, and this was the short version, if you can imagine. You lost your husband. It's not easy. The whole cancer thing.
No, it's not.
No. So.
Well, good. So if anyone has questions or comments, let's hear about them. We'll get Barbara to answer you.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'll answer any question. Mm-hmm. Oh, God. Well, so anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. Always happy to hear from you. We're at the Elusive Dick Podcast at gmail.com.
Good night.
Bye.